and back to the absolute scale of course, the economists will tell you that the needs of man are insatiable, and so you can never satisfy, and you would always have to try and attempt to meet your needs. And one of such is education, because before now we would say, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. However, education is now even more expensive, given how the naira is behaving at the foreign exchange and the inflation and all the other economic indices. Joining me to have the conversation on how the economy is impacting on education, most especially primary and secondary education, basic education, is an education consultant. Is many things, but we'll just be tapping into his expertise in the educational sector. I'm talking about Ikechi Nwogu. It's good to have you on the show. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Canada, my pleasure. Yeah.
All right. So you had my introduction. A lot of people are looking at redefining what their priorities are. So can we start? I listened to your interview the other day on Wazobia. You were talking about out-of-school children. How important is it for parents to put the education of their kids on the list of priorities? Let's start from there.
Well, it's a very funny case, just for the want of a better word. I've seen cases. A young man had approached me some time back. His father schooled abroad,
Okay.
apparently,
Mm-hmm.
but the man would refuse to train him in school. And you begin to wonder, a man of such measure of enlightenment, we shouldn't be referring to him as one who's not paying particular attention to his children's education. And then you have parents who would prefer to fund an uncle's burial, a relative's burial, okay, rather than pay the school fees of their children. So a lot of parents, especially in Rivers State, have relegated the educational pursuits, the educational dreams of their children to the background. They don't see it like something. It's worse when they attended public schools, where they paid nothing. They trekked to school without sandals. And then you now tell them your shoes got caught. They are like, get behind me. In my time, I did this, I did that. Okay, so perception is a strong word when it comes to the readiness of parents to invest in the futures of their children, because most of them don't even see the education of their children as their future. They just consider it as going to school, and school is that place next door. They don't pay particular attention, and it's a sorry case. So you just have a little percentage of parents who are intentional about what it is they want to achieve, about the educational dreams of their children.
Okay, so but for those who really want to achieve the educational dreams of their children, they are not being battered by the economy. And I'm wondering, if these people should put education top on the list, because some people would say, oh, we have to eat first. We can no longer afford transportation. And for these people who are, I should say, classified, the middle class, they don't see the public schools as options. So, how important should they think about education for their kids?
Okay, so education is a social service before it becomes a business. Okay, and then you look at the providers of education. You've got government as a service provider, and then you've got the private sector as an interventionist. Because, before the proliferation of education, even in most countries, you go to Russia, for example, you go to most countries, you'd rather school in a government facility than in a private facility, because government invests hugely, has what it takes and all that. But you come to Nigeria, you remember when a US report indicated that by 2015, education will cease to exist in Nigeria because of the lip service, because of the lackluster interest paid by government as a service provider. Now, education seems to be surviving in a place like Rivers State or Nigeria because a lot of private sector concerns have come in and they said, look, we can do this. And you have all sorts of schools, but then quality education is really expensive. And then you understand that at the other side of the divide, okay, policy inputs and all that, we seem to be churning out two different categories of scholars. Okay, you have the mass underclass. I mean, where you have half-baked attention paid to learning, okay, overcrowded classrooms and all of that, leaking roofs, zero attention, incessant strikes. That's at the government divide. But you come to the private schools, they have to make up for this. The teachers have to be paid so they don't also go on strike. So a lot of the private practitioners have identified with the ills of the government service provision. Okay, and then government doesn't pay their staff. Government doesn't fund infrastructure. Government doesn't replace broken chairs and broken roofs and broken this. So the private sector has to do all of that. The laboratories must be fixed even before the same government will come for approval. They have the inspectorate divisions that would move around schools and ensure that certain details are up to date in the private schools. So providing all of those things would come at an expense, and the costs would need to be shared across the students. And that's why it seems as though education is expensive in the private areas. But then what do that? We're blessed in River State to know that for every social strata you belong to, there is a school that could make up. I mean, even in the private sector, there are some schools that are not too expensive. So you have the okay schools. There are still schools in Port Harcourt that are very affordable, and then you have the semi-affordable ones, and then you have. But then at the next line of this conversation, we'll be looking at the case of demand and supply. Okay, we'll be looking at demand and supply. Why some schools are even forced to increase their fees just to meet up with the demand, the tastes of the elites. Yeah.
So when you said demand and supply, please can you expatiate on that one? Because I'm very intrigued, when you say demand and supply.
There are schools in Port Harcourt, right, who would ordinarily charge 100,000, for example. And the first question a listener would ask is, what are they teaching there? Because there's an expectation in Port Harcourt. Everybody wants to, express wealth and affluence. Okay, there are schools. Do you know that there are schools where a certain child, Kalada's child, just lives next door, and then the child comes in Keke Napep, right? And then somebody who came in an E-class or an X-class or a G-Wagon, who brought his children in the G-Wagon, reaches out to the head teacher or principal and says, can you increase your fees so that people like this cannot meet up with the standards of the school?
So are you saying things like that happen? So there is the classism even in educational sector.
There is a classism when it comes to education, because for some persons it's bragging right. They want to tell you, I pay 500,000, I pay 1 million naira, I pay in dollars for my children. They want to brag about it within their social class. So they want you to cut off the lower strata of children, so in case their friends escort them to pick their children in school, they want to see the beautiful paintings and all that, and they don't want to be in the same school. They lower their fee. It is calls are made. If you don't send this, is my enemy's child, is my neighbor's child. Okay, I'm going to bring in 40 more pupils, and remember that it's a business. It's a business. So you hear 40 pupils.
Can the regulators do anything about issues like this?
We expect that the regulators should be able to, one, stratify schools, grade them. There's no proper categorization of schools, okay, in River State. And then also regulate the fees, how much you can charge as fees. Because at the end of the day, I mean, the most we have done is to say, okay, we should charge in naira, not in dollars. Okay, yeah, but I mean, nursery, primary, secondary school, at that level, okay, you shouldn't be charging 3 million naira, 5 million naira, 1 million naira anywhere in Nigeria.
Interesting.
Because me and you, I went to public schools, and the most of education is not even in what you're taught, it's what you are encouraged to learn. So real value in education should teach you to pick up the books for yourself and find answers. Education is about answers, not about learning.
All right, Mr. Nwogu,
So
I would have to pause you. Apologies. We do have a commercial. When we do come back, we'll continue from this classism and, strata for different people in society. Please.
For more talk, news and sports, stay tuned to Nigeria Info.
We'll be right back after this.
Four p.m. You're still listening to Hard Facts in 92.3 Nigeria. And with me on the show is an educational consultant. And once again, I like I said earlier, he's, many things. But let's go with his expertise in the educational sector. I'm talking about Mr. Ikechi Nwogu. Mr. Ikechi, welcome back on this show. Just before we went in for that commercial break, we're talking about classism because we're trying to understand how the economy is impacting the educational sector. So you were telling us about classism and how people have put their children in particular schools just to be able to show style or to show that they have wealth or standards or something.
I would ask questions. Maybe, okay, let me forget my interest in education. I would want to know things like teacher turnover. I want to know things like WAEC results. What have been the prevailing WAEC performances? I would rather send my children to schools where I'm sure that I'm getting value for whatever amount I'm paying. Not paintings, because you go research on what America calls the complete school package. So schools come in models and arrangements, and then there's what complete school. There are requirements, okay, for classroom sizing, look and feel, and all that. Not some of the things that we showcase here, but because this is not owned by government, it becomes a problem. So schools just come up with anything, as long as it looks like, there's some cladding, some fine paintings in the buildings, the environment looks really worth the while. Everybody wants to come in there and pay whatever the demands are, but nobody's asking about performances. You go through the ranks of performances year on year, okay, and then you ask yourself, where are the dollarized schools? Because the essence of all of this, Calda, is so you place your child in the hands of a school within the first 16 to 18 years of their lives, and that becomes a ticket for the rest of their lives. But these children that attend some of these schools, I mean, I went to public schools. I attended a unity school, right? And then upon graduation from the university, the best 5 to 10 children or students in the university never saw the four walls of a private school or even a unity school. Some of them just attended community schools here. You go back to JAMB and WAEC. Okay, look at the performances of JAMB. I mean, we have them in the dailies, okay? Most of them, at most, one church school here, one, public school here. So if that is true, why all the emphasis on very expensive schools? It shows the level of ignorance of most of our parents. And they are not interested because, of course, most of them want to just send their children abroad. Your child doesn't make his UTME, and then there's an opportunity to send him to Canada, send him to the US, and then they continue with that kind of lifestyle. But at the end of the day, how does that add up to our national equation? Nobody's thinking about that. Because it's still presidents. I mean, from as much as you know, our governors from as much as you know, nobody's asking how many of our governors have come from the ranks of private schools.
Okay.
Them all grown from public schools through the ranks, through the lines. And so what kind of future are we expecting to have with children who are not properly homegrown, who don't have a balance on ideals, who are not, a little bit of, smart on the streets? They can be book smart, they really book smart. I mean, if private schools are not paying that much attention to external exams, a lot of these private schools today, research would reveal, okay, they have some game exam officials just to ensure they keep hitting the results and more parents are bringing their children to those schools.
I didn't get that.
But at the end of the analysis,
I didn't get that clearly. You said they do what with JAM officials?
They exchange envelopes with exam officials, not necessarily JAM, exam officials.
Okay.
They are engaged in a lot of malpractice. Okay, yeah, they are engaged in a lot of malpractice. We have details, we have records, we have stories. So, okay, this is a special. Even the exam officials will tell you there are certain schools they like to go to. They lobby to go to those schools because the envelope is fat, and then they turn a blind eye to whatever the school is doing. And then there's usually mass examination malpractice just to have the clean records. And then you see the billboards. These are the scores we've been having here and there. Some schools are strict. It's not everyone. But parents should be aware that there are better details than the bragging rights, as they call it.
Okay.
Schooling for your children shouldn't be something you brag about. Yeah.
So from what I've gleaned from all you've said, two things. One, quality, and two, the impact of privatization of educational system in Nigeria, or even sending our children abroad. You've rightly pointed out that majority of our leaders were in public schools, not even unity schools, community schools. And if you look at the past governors here in Rivers State, you will see that, if not all, attended, public schools. The question then is, the current public schools are almost, not all of them, there's some that are beautiful and great things are happening there, but are almost nothing to write home about. And yet, the private sector is now facing classism issues. Which way? What way? That's the question.
Well, I think it's just, unfortunately, I'd like to say this, and I could be quoted. The governments of our day need to wake up to the reality of life after government. To a lot of them, education is really not what shows off as their performance indicators. They want to construct roads. When they say projects, a lot of them are looking at roads and easy hanging fruits for them. You want to praise them on the bridges and flyovers and all that, but the soft things, the technical areas of governance, they are not paying particular attention. Okay, when you talk of inspectorate divisions of the Ministry of Education, for example, you need project vehicles. And when you look at the inspectors per project vehicles, the ratio of them, you realize why most of them can't even go to schools in the hinterlands. So the focus in the metropolis. You don't have, so you go to the villages, the rural areas. You go to areas where you even have to cross the rivers. And you see that not much attention to those ones really don't exist. Okay, there is poor teacher enrollment. So I say the government has on education. When last did we carry out proper teacher census? Okay, some teachers die with age, some retire, they're not replaced. Some teachers don't show up at work and nobody knows. They have a deal with the principal, especially in the hinterland. There are teachers that teach in 2-3 schools, but they never show up. They stay in Port Harcourt, their connection, okay, and then they are posted to one village in Eleme or in Ikechi, and they don't go. At the end of the day, they just speak. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they just pay something to the principal in those village schools who covers up for them and ticks all of this. And so proper attention is not paid to detail in education. The Ministry of Education are more particular about how many new classroom blocks will be built. Okay, how are we buying? How are we funding this? The money areas, not the performance areas. Okay, the politics of promotion. The politics of promotion, who gets what, okay, allocation of resources and all that. But the survival of the schools is such a big project that even when you bring it to EXCO, sometimes it's not, it seems like a distraction from the core of what they want to talk about. And this is government not paying proper attention to education, which is why, look at what it is. So beyond the contract of uniform, who sews the uniform, who provides the school books, the life of the school is lost. The meat of education is lost. Government is no longer paying attention to the kinds of the quality of results that we churn out now in Rivers State. When last did Rivers State record the best performances in public exams? When last? I mean, zero malpractice. When last? Across the level.
Okay, so
these are the issues that matter.
Okay, we'll get to solution maybe after we listen to some of the callers. But I want us to touch on the quality, because you also mentioned something about quality, because you said these schools, especially the private ones, are asking for huge amounts as fees. But what is the corresponding, knowledge being given to the children? So how can a parent know? Because you've said it's not in the class of the school, is in what that your child obtains from that school he attends. So how can a parent know where a school is dishing out quality knowledge? Because like you've said, knowledge is not in what you're taught, is in the ability to use your mind, to criticize things or critique things. I think that's what I should have said. Critique things.
Yeah. So for me, I look at the notes of my children, but I don't know how many parents do that. So that's the best way to assess that. You look at the engagement. How independent are your children when it comes to homework? I mean, I'm happy that my children would scarcely bring their homework for me to take a look at. That's independence in learning. So we need to raise independent learners. These are thinkers for themselves. And this is how you assess results. It's not just who came first and who came second. A lot of schools are now not doing that. Okay? They are paying more attention to independent learning. That's quality. So at the end of the day, your child can query knowledge. He can get on the internet and begin to research for himself. I'm happy to come home and I ask my child, what are you doing? He says, I'm researching on something. So there was something I didn't understand in class. I just want to learn more about it. I didn't ask him to do that. The teacher didn't ask him to do that. That's independence in learning. That's a good school. But if your child just comes in and he's only waiting to come first and beyond that, nothing. Yeah, I mean, you interact with your children. And sometimes I'm impressed with their level of perception, with their level of reasoning. Okay, and these were babies I just gave birth to a couple of days ago, and then they are reasoning. We can engage. How many parents feel that we're so busy hustling, we don't engage our children? So when you engage, when you hear your children speak, they place their grammatical structure here and there. Even the questions they ask you, Daddy, what is this? I was reading something, I came across this. What do you think it means? You know that, okay, value is being created. But do we have the time to engage our children? So we can't really query, because life does not begin and end in school.
Can we equate? So sorry to quote you short. Can we equate fluency with the amount of knowledge or the quality of knowledge garnered?
Fluency in English language is power. Applied knowledge is power. It's not what a man knows, but about what he does with what he knows. And so a lot of us are theoretical. We want to speak big grammar, speak the phonetics and come out posh and right and all that. But at the end of the day, okay, how much results are we delivering for our nation? I mean, from the proliferation, the time of the proliferation of education, of private schooling in Nigeria, it's more than 3-4 decades now. Then you come back to the application side of things, and you wonder what results. The same age mates of ours in other climes are creating amazing solutions. And then one of our lecturers was telling us when we were in school, he said, if our generation builds an airplane, he won't get in because he's not sure of what we're going to build. And I felt so sad. I said, but you are a teacher. You could inspire us to build that. So the schools are not raising children anymore to provide answers to society. The schools are set up to make money today. Okay. Otherwise, anyone should challenge me on it. Where are the jets competitions of those days? Where are the competition? Even at state level, when we grew up as children, we had a lot of debate competitions, and some of those debaters are journalists today. So where are the debaters? Thank God for Nigeria Info's I beg to differ debate. And sometimes I'm impressed because that's where the private sector is coming in to intervene. But at government level, what is government doing?
Okay.
What is government doing?
Does the curriculum, I mean, recently we had, it has been changed. We don't know the details of that yet. I don't know if you know the details. But does the curriculum have anything to do with what you just talked about? Talking about the quality of knowledge at, basic education level?
The curriculum is more particular about globalization. So a lot of what is explored in the recent curriculum is kind of like, I would say, Americanization of education. But then there is a component of the curriculum which we are not really paying attention to, and that's skills. The curriculum encourages skill tooling, skills acquisition, even while in school, especially with the basic curriculum. So you mustn't advance to senior secondary. You can stop at JSE level. You're tooled with a carpentry skill or a joinery skill, and you can go find your life. I mean, at basic schooling, if not necessarily with the special, schools for all of those things, government craft centers and all that. Okay, so the curriculum provides that, but beyond, and the supervision of the delivery. And so how many of these private schools have provision of such facilities for carpentry and joinery and machinery and farming and all that? So most private schools don't even have space for play. And so when you are going on approvals, there are certain details you look at. So it could be provided for in the curriculum, but then at delivery level, because no one is coming to supervise, no one cares. Or otherwise, even if someone is coming to supervise, a brown envelope could just be exchanged, and he goes away and he gives you a big mark, a plus, and all that. What does it? So we need to go back to the basics.
All right.
Go back to study as government now. Government needs to be intentional about their own duties as government. That way they can check and balance what's going on, but then with a view to buying the future in results and producing great scholars. It must be intentional.
All right. Okay, to you listening right now, you can join the conversation. 08179230002, 08179230003, 08179230007. I'd like to know how the economy is affecting education from your own environment, from your own corner. How, I want you to personalize the conversation. How is it affecting? I've just learned, I don't have children who are in schools. I've just learned that there is classism. And then, of course, the public sector is not well taken care of. So we are in a conundrum, educational conundrum, and we're looking for what the right path to follow. I've got Clinton, and Clinton is calling me from Bori. Clinton, welcome. What is on your mind? I'd like to hear.
Colorado, thank you very much for this conversation.
Okay.
It is a very, very important one, and one that borders on the development of any economy, any nation. And I think that your guests in the studio have done justice to most of the problems. He has erased virtually the challenges you are facing in this sector. And what we need now is a solution. The solution to our problem, the problem bedeviling the education sector in Nigeria, is a state of emergency to be declared in that sector because there's a complete collapse in the system. In the past, the public education that we got was very, very good compared to what we are having now. In fact, we don't have public education again. Why? Teachers are not there. The foundation teachers that taught us at the basic levels are no longer there. What we have now are people just recruited to teach the pupils. And when you don't get it right at the basic level, how do you expect to get it right at the top? And we are saying that the government at all levels should be intentional in looking at how they can fix the challenges of the system. Public schools will fix. In fact, there's no private school in Canada. In the past, private school and public school used to compete. But now the private schools, they're a shadow of themselves. So we are saying, as stakeholders, that if we must get it right as a country, as a nation, if we must make progress, the education system, this sector must be prioritized by any government. They must prioritize education because it is gone. It has completely collapsed. The curriculum is gone, outdated.
All right.
The one I saw recently that they want to bring in skills into schools. How many schools have these facilities, Canada? Go to the remote areas, villages. How many schools have these facilities?
Okay.
So around the schools. So I think people, if they are saying this thing, they should be very, very intentional about it. Not just saying it on paper. They should be particular and ensure that our public schools are given the due attention it needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Clinton. I've got Muriel. Muriel, I guess you're calling from Okrika. Welcome. What is on your mind? Tell me.
Thank you. KDB.
Yeah.
Look, KDB, your best, I listened at the beginning till now, and it's very educating. KDB, I just want to ask one question. If it's better, we are the first people, we need to be better off if we bring back more missionary schools, than encourage private schools. I remember I attended the missionary school, and it was very, very okay, top notch. So is the missionaries to bringing it back, encouraging it back into the system, will it help improve the educational system? Thank you, Kelly.
All right, Muriel, thank you. Your question will be looked at. I've got Enzo from Transamadi. Enzo, welcome. Let us get
Carla, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Welcome.
Yeah, your guest just hit the nail on the head. And
Okay.
I've lived in this society, in this part of the world and I feel pain in my whenever I see public schools. Like you rightly said, skills. Not everybody should go to the four walls of the university. Not every in your primary school, if you know how to, if you have a particular skill, you can debate and start fixing the society by using your skills to develop the society yourself. But it's so unfortunate that I'm going to use Saudis as a perfect case study. You go to Saudis, all those things that's called primary and secondary school, they are not even qualified to be called degree. But yet we celebrate here for investing in education. And we have leaders who live in UK and abroad. They came to Nigeria, and we gave them money and enough resources to replicate just one thing their kids benefited in UK or in America, in Nigeria. They could not even replicate one thing. I'm talking about Saudi, for instance. Go to the state of primary and secondary school, the Saudis. They're all dilapidated, and they keep turning out statistics that they invested in education. How invest in education where the environment is not being conducive for a pig? For a pig. You go to universities, you have schools. University doesn't have sports complex. How do you learn? Does everybody come to school to come and read books? Theoretically, you go and read books to pass exams. You come and you cannot even use what you studied in school to solve real human problems. You go to where I grew up in Cameroon. There's no school in Cameroon, a primary school in Cameroon, where you don't have sports facilities. Nobody will approve that school for people to send their kids there. But you come to Nigeria, but I hardly find one private school that has a sports facility. None. They just go there, read books and go out. How will you learn
a couple
in an
of
environment where you don't have that reading. You
All
will
right.
have to exercise their brain
All
with
right.
little sport activities. You cannot learn in such environment.
Enzo, I've got to
We
go.
have a lot of private schools in Nigeria without a single handball court, volleyball court.
No, we have a
How
couple.
would you
I'm
turn out-
not
how would
at
you turn out
liberty to call
the
names.
People who graduate from school and solve real human problems. That's why after turning out all these BP graduates, they go to abroad. They send them back to school.
All right.
Because they cannot be used when they study in school to solve their own personal problems.
All right, I've got
That's
to
why
go.
we call that you go to university.
Enzo.
Somebody studying petroleum engineering for 5 years will not see crude oil. And you tell me that person is studying petroleum engineering.
Enzo, I've got to
And
go.
what?
I'm sorry, I've got to go. But there are schools, by the way, secondary schools, primary schools that have the sporting facilities you mentioned. But I've got Christian from Bunny. Christian, quickly, we have a commercial in about 2 minutes, so please wrap your thoughts in 2 minutes, please.
Canada,
Yeah.
the truth is what we are going through today is an issue of self-afflicted problems.
Okay.
We take pleasure in confusing ourselves. Tell me, in a situation like this in Nigeria today, where do we start from?
Oh, sorry. I guess we lost that connection. Do well to call back. Mr. Ikechi Nwogu, you've heard some of the callers, and some of them align with the thoughts you've shared on the show. Before we go for that commercial, I want to ask, homeschooling, is it an option for some people, homeschooling?
Yeah, but it all depends on available facilities. Now, the good thing is some private organizations are beginning to invest in that area. Okay, yeah, and it's a possibility. I mean, it worked during COVID. So schools are beginning to consider, in today's world, in Port Harcourt, schools are beginning to consider hybrid learning. So your child cannot come to school, but then he can have access to learning. All right, through videos and teaching notes and all that, and then probably some form of assessment and supervision. It's still being explored, and then solutions are coming stronger. And just like COVID-19 ushered us into a new world with new realities and all that. Okay. Yeah, one day it will be a thing.
I'm sorry again. I have to pause you. Another commercial, but apologies.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem.
You are tuned in to
Nigeria